studying at a foreign university seemed like an exciting prospect. Until I got lost with no money, no phone, and no way to get home. This is just one of my many tales. At the time, I was living in a university residence and hung out with a big group of people. One day I was loitering around on the streets at about 9 p.m. when I got a message on my phone saying I should head back to the residence as it was someone's birthday and we had to celebrate. Let's call this person B. We collected in the residence dining hall and we had some cake and played some games. During the festivities, 2 girls who we knew showed up and one of them had quite noticeably been drinking. In fact, at one point she decided the cold, unforgiving floor of the residence dining hall was an appropriate place to lay down for a quick nap. Time went by and we all had a good time. I don't remember much of the actual birthday because most of my memories of that day are from what happened right after. As things were winding down, it was probably around midnight. Now, I could have just retired back to my room and had a wonderful rest, but I decided that 2 women, one of whom tried to be a treat at some point that evening, navigating their way home at midnight was a recipe for disaster. The actual journey to their place involved a subway ride and a short walk to their place. After I'd left them at their apartment, I exited their building and headed back to the subway station. The time was now around 3:30 a.m. and, unbeknownst to me, this is when the subway officially shuts. When I got to the platform to get on the subway back, a subway employee pointed right at me and said, "Where are you going?" I told him my station and he gave me directions to another platform and told me to run as it was the last train. So I ran. I ran like I was going to miss my train and I made it just as the doors were about to shut. Feeling a sense of relief and accomplishment, I went over to the map inside the train to see how many stops I had to get off in. But there was a slight problem: my stop wasn't on the map. In fact, I didn't recognize any of the stops at all. I was on a train to nowhere. I decided the best course of action was to get off at the next stop and figure out a course of action. So that's what I did. Now I had no idea where I was and I couldn't get on a train in the other direction because the subway was officially closed. I was basically stranded. I wandered around on the streets for a bit, before deciding I probably needed some help. It would have been useful to pull out my phone and use the wonders of modern technology to get home, but that's when I ran into problem number 2. I was at 5% battery. My phone would probably die in the process of finding out the directions or figuring out which bus to take. I had to get creative. First, I figured out which direction the train I was just on was going in and then started walking in the opposite direction. After traveling some distance cursing under my breath, I eventually got back to the original train station near the girls' building. I decided to take stock of my options. I could try heading back to the building, but the 2 of them were probably asleep like dead bodies. I could risk it and use my phone to get some directions and hope it lives long enough to direct me home. I could pick a direction and hope for the best. Faced with almost certainly wandering the streets until someone found me, I decided it was time to get creative. My plan was to call my friend who was good with directions, explain the situation to her as quickly as I could, cut the call to conserve battery and then wait for her to call back with directions. So, I called her. But someone else picked up. Someone who was responsible for this whole mess. Be sure to subscribe to hear more about my troubles, which had only just begun, and for more stories from the life of TRB.